So we're gonna do a tier list in honor of Savage coming out next week. We're gonna do a tier list of most of the Savage bosses. So I've only really been playing since Stormblood. I've only been like Savage rating since Eden's Gate, but I have done all of the Stormblood ones, like minimum item level, down synced with like the like super low item level gear that tries to replicate like the values of week 1 with current level. I've done all that shit, so I feel qualified enough to talk about the Stormblood raids at least, but I don't really feel qualified to talk about the Heavensward ones. I've done most of them, but like I don't feel like I have a particularly accurate picture of how they actually were to raid them on content, so I'm not gonna include them. Starting with our boy Alt-Royd. I mean, yeah, I can't in good conscience give it any better than a C. Like I understand the whole like they wanna make the first fight of an expansion kind of easier so that people who are new to the game, people who are still getting used to their max level jobs, can complete it. And I also understand that this was kind of a new era of Savage raiding where they were kind of experimenting with how difficult they wanted it to be. But this fight's just too fucking easy. It's just way too fucking easy. So I gotta drop it in a C. Catastrophe. Not much better, but it does have a couple cool mechanics. It's like a really forgettable fight, I feel like. I don't really feel like it's like it does anything interesting. It's just kind of like the gravity thing is like it's cute, but it's not interesting. And honestly, I think that just like duty actions in general are kind of annoying. I'm glad they've moved away from using them. I think they're kind of gimmicky and stupid. And this one particularly, I don't think it's used in a very interesting way. So I'm gonna drop it a B. It's okay, but not great. Now, my queen, Halicarnassus. Absolute S tier fight. This is probably, honestly, probably my favorite Savage fight from Stormblood. I think it's the best third fight they've ever made. Living Liquid Andies in shambles, I'm sure, but at least in like the modern Stormblood and Beyond era, I feel like Halicarnassus is just peak. Absolutely peak. It gets like a little long in the tooth towards the end. I feel like it runs out of steam a little bit the last like 20% of the boss, but everything else is just so good that I gotta drop it in S tier. X-Death. X-Death phase 1 is fine. I'll give him an A. I think X-Death phase 1 is good. I like the Stormblood design of door bosses more, where like the first boss is only like 4 or 5 minutes long, and then the last boss is like 10-11 minutes long. I think that's way better than the current iteration of door boss, where you have like what feels like 2 half-finished fights, which is why I hope we get something different this time around. I would absolutely love to see them make a return to this kind of door boss. Neo X-Death, I think, also has to get an S. Definitely, I would say, I know Brute Justice also has some kind of debuff vomit in it, but I feel like Neo X-Death and the Grand Cross mechanics are kind of like the birth of the modern like debuff vomit mechanic puzzle that we have in pretty much all of our Savage tiers at this point. I think it's a really fucking good fight. The music is incredible, the transition is incredible, mechanics are really cool. Very fun fight. Ooh, and then we go to Phantom Train. It's unique. It's got some interesting ideas, but overall, it's not very fun. I give it like an A for creativity and like a fucking stinky F for execution, so I'm just gonna drop it in the C. Oh, this is the fucking, what's this boss called? The painting boss. This also gets a C. I don't like this boss. I think this boss is mega annoying. I've only done this boss once, like seriously. I just don't like it. It's another stupid duty action gimmick fight. Not a huge fan. I don't really have much to say about it. I just think it's kind of a stupid fight. 07 Guardian. I like this fight a lot. Really cool fight. Honestly, I don't want to devalue the S tier, but like it's a really good boss. Like, it has a lot of variety in how things can unfold. It makes you pay attention and react. As far as third bosses go, yo, Stormblood third boss is kind of owned. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, it's getting an S. Guardian's a really fucking good fight. Like, super banger fight. I forgore. I don't like it more than Halicarnassus, but I do like it a lot. Kefka, it's okay. I think I would give both Kefka and God Kefka, I give them an A. They're not my favorite. Definitely a step down from Neo X-Death. I think they're both kind of the same quality. All right, then we got our boy. One thing I do want to mention kind of is I'm rating these fights against other fights that are like ranked in. So like, I'm not gonna rank like 09S against like final bosses. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna rate it as it is a first fight, because I feel like it's kind of stupid to rate like a final boss against like a first boss when they aim to do different things. So I feel like it's kind of stupid to rank them against each other versus ranking them against like other bosses in that same position. I think this is an S tier. No, actually, I think it's an A tier. And here's why. I do think this boss is like a little overrated. I know everyone loves the whole like kind of modular build of the fight where like you can get different chunks of the fight in different order, and so like it's easier and more like it's different to prog than other fights because you learn the fight. By the time you hit 50%, you've probably seen most of the fight, which is cool, but also kind of lame at the same time, because it feels like you're only progging like, I don't know. It just, the way you prog this fight feels weird because of how it unfolds like that. And I think just like, while that is an interesting aspect of the fight, it's also just kind of like mechanically not that interesting. It's definitely better than the other first fights, but that's not very difficult because those fights are both kind of stupid. I do like Chaos. I don't quite like it as much as I think a lot of other people did. And maybe if I did it when it was like current a bunch, I might like it more. But as it stands right now, I think it's just okay. It's better than okay, but it's good, but it's not like amazing. All right, Midgar Somer. I give it a B. It's okay. It's got some cool stuff in it, but I honestly don't have a lot to say about it. This is another one I've only done like once, and it was a pretty fast prog. So like, I don't have a ton to say about it. It's fine. It's got some cool, unique stuff with like the, yeah, the bulwark. That's what it is. Which is, yeah, the bulwark thing is cool. It's definitely unique, but I feel like it takes a long time to get there, and it's a lot of just like in, out, raw. Like it feels, the pacing is weird. Like it's just kind of like eh. 011. It's good. I don't think it's amazing, but it's good. I like the level checker phase a lot. Pantocrator, banger song. But overall, I'd say it's above average, but not amazing. Not an S. This whole tier in general, I'm not crazy about. My view of Stormblood raids is a little weird too, because like I never farmed them, so I don't have like the most intimate familiarity with them like I do the rest of the tiers. 012 Phase 1 to B. I think it's got some cool mechanics. It's just too fucking long. It's way too long. And it like repeats mechanics. Like it doesn't have enough in it. Like it doesn't have enough to be as long as it is. It drags really hard. The first like 2 or 3 minutes of that phase are really fun and interesting, and then it just drags. Phase 2 I like more. I wouldn't put it in S, but it's close. It's got a lot of really cool mechanics. I like Hello World a lot. Another iteration on the debuff vomit. I think it's a very influential mechanic. It's executionally these days, it's not like the most interesting thing in the world. Patch is cool. Like there's some cool mechanics in there for sure. All right, now we get to the good shit. Eden Prime. Definitely one of the best first fights they've made, in my opinion. Like of an expansion, probably the best first fight they've made of an. I don't think it quite cracks the S tier, but it's really good. It's a really, really good boss. Another fight that gets kind of feels like it runs out of ideas in the last 25%, but especially because once it's on farm, you don't have to deal with that last 25%. It's not too bad. But in Prague, it's interesting enough, and it's a first boss, so it kind of, you get to that last 25%, and you can usually, like, any half-decent group will get to that last 25% and probably one-shot the rest of it, because you'll see it, you'll be able to react to it fast enough and go, oh, okay, I know what's going on here. And I actually think that's not a bad thing for a first boss. I don't think that a first boss needs to be like this slog like I think some people seem to want. So I think like giving you that last 25% to just kind of react is decent. Voidwalker, man, I really like Voidwalker. It's a fantastic second fight. I don't think I can give it an S because it's a lot of just like, I think it's really well designed because again, first raid tier in an expansion, you have to consider more than just people who have been playing the game forever. You have to consider the new players who want to get into Savage raiding. And Voidwalker is like a clinic. It teaches you fundamentals of raiding in a really good way. You have like you got your proteans, your stacks, your donuts, line AoEs, and then it kind of combines everything at the end for one final test with the cycles. It's got the A cycle and the B cycle, so you have to pay attention to the name. Like it teaches you that you have to watch the name of a mechanic. It teaches you have to watch the animation with the knockback hand versus the point blank AoE hand. It gives you flares. Like it's got like, it throws the fucking kitchen sink at you, which for a second fight is like really impressive. Really impressive that they were able to fit all of that into a second fight and not make it feel overwhelming or like too much. And also the spell and waiting mechanic adds a unique flair to all of that I think makes it interesting for players who maybe have been playing for a long time who know all of that. Fuck it. Dude, I'm talking myself out of it. It's an S. It's an S. It's an S tier fight. I tried to talk myself out of it, and then I just spent like 30 seconds explaining why it's an amazing fight for both new players and experienced players. It's a fucking S. Great fight. Banger. Then we got Leviathan. I don't hate this fight as much as other people, but I don't love it. I'm going to throw it at the very bottom of the B tier. I think it's got some cool stuff. The beginning of the fight, like the first like 20% is all right. And then like the middle chunk is really boring. And then you get to like Black Smokers and it's picks up a little bit. And then there's just like fucking a minute and a half of standing around healing up raid-wide damage and just tunneling the boss. It's got major pacing issues, but I think at its core, it's got some interesting ideas. Malige. Titan might be my favorite Savage fight ever. It's so fucking good. Fast-paced, fun mechanics. great music, great kind of aesthetics and visuals, really cool second phase with Titan Maximum. Is it a little on the easy side? Yeah, but it's just so fucking fun, man. It's got good variety. That last phase where you're fighting small Titan and big Titan at the same time is really fun. Yeah, it's a fucking S++ tier banger Giga Chad fight. Very likely my favorite Savage fight of all time. Next up, Ramuh. I give it an A. I think it's a cool remix of an old fight. It's got some serious 8-man mechanics for a first fight of a Savage tier. It's really funny to watch the off tank eat shit to the bird. It's really funny to watch people miss their spears and blow up the entire party. It's really funny to watch people fuck up chain lightning. Like, it's just, this fight in the first couple weeks in Party Finder was an absolute fucking shit show. And it was funny to watch. I think there were a little, I think I wouldn't give it an S because there was a little bit too much of the, like, if one person fucks up, it just fucking griefs the entire party, if not just flat out causes a wipe. And there was the whole like true north versus boss relative, and then like triangle strat, circle strat, like a lot of really annoying strat arguments, which is a theme for this tier. Overall, I thought it was a fun fight mechanically, not too difficult once you kind of understood it. Ifrit and Garuda. If I was rating this fight based on my pure experience as a player, as a caster, I would probably give it a B. However, even though I didn't play it as a tank, do I drop it to C because of Conflag Strike? Because man, what a bad mechanic if you're a fucking tank. Poor tanks, dude. Poor fucking tanks. Conflag Strike is literally just go sit in Africa and spam lightning shot for fucking 6 GCDs. And like, if it had anything really, really good, I might be inspired to say, well, yeah, while that was kind of shitty, this, that, and the other makes up for it, so I'm going to bring it up to a B. But honestly, there's nothing real. Nothing in this fight is like that interesting that makes me want to push it up to a B. It's like average at best, and then has some really shitty things for some rolls. So like, I think in general, I think that means I want to keep it at a C. I think it's like at the very top of the C tier. Now we get to put our first entry into the stinky tier. Fuck this boss. Boss sucks ass. Horrible boss. I don't even really know what to say. If you know, you know, is really all there is to say about it. If you know, you know. The only thing I would give it is that it has like kind of an interesting ads phase, but even that, from what I understand, is just a ripoff of, what is it, T7's ad phase? I never did the coils, but I think it's T7. It's one of the second coil fights, I believe, has an ad phase that's basically the same thing as the E7 ads phase. So like, that's okay. It's kind of cool. But other than that, like, this fight is just fucking horrendous. It's so boring. It's so slow. There is so much downtime in between every mechanic. The one mechanic that could have been cool, the portal mechanic, got neutered because the devs thought it was too hard for a Savage fight. Apparently, that's what they said in an interview, at least from what I understand. That was the one chance the fight had of doing something interesting, and it just blew it. Not much else to say. It's shit. It's bad. Really bad. Not the last fight we'll put in that tier, but has the honor of being the first. Not quite. I do not rank Shiva quite above Titan, but it's fucking close. It is like this close. And I would say that overall, I enjoy the mechanics of Shiva a little bit more, but I just love the vibe of Titan more. On top of which, what really makes Titan beat Shiva is the cutscene. Fuck that cutscene, man. Fuck that cutscene. If you're gonna make me have this stupid downtime while the boss sits there and RPs, at least let me keep my, like, you know, keep my Enochian, let people keep their stacks of stuff, let samurais meditate, like, let me build resources instead of just sitting there watching you fucking RP for a minute straight every fucking pull. And it's like early in the fight. It's early. So that's really bad. The cutscene just fucking sucks. But other than that, it's a great fight. Very front-loaded. Obviously, Light Rampant caused the Party Finder to completely fall apart. And it seems that it caused Square Enix to completely reconsider the way they design Savage fights, because we haven't had a non-door boss fight since then. And just from the vibes I get from M4, I think that trend is going to continue. I think M4 is going to be another door boss. So for better or for worse, E7 or E8 was an extremely influential fight. But I think it's a great fight. I think it's so good. Really, really fantastic fight. I encourage anyone who's never done it to go in minimum item level and do it. All right, now here we go. Our first S tier first fight. Out of Darkness. Dude, I fucking love this fight. I love this fight. I fucking love this fight. Like, the mechanics are actually really fun. It's another one of those, like, you know, it's a little gimmicky, and then it's like the half room into pairs or half room into Protean. And then you got your anti-air versus wide angle or whatever. Like, it's a little gimmicky, but the mechanics are fun. It's pretty fast paced for a first fight. And man, Isles. Bro, this tier could have lasted forever and I would have been fine with it, because Tiles, this fight was infinite content. You could go in the Party Finder every fucking week and have a great time just watching people fucking PvP with these Tiles. Oh, it was so good. So good. Just an incredibly enjoyable fight. All right, next we got Shadow Pup. It's fine. I give it a mid B. It's okay. I don't hate it. I do hate Umbral Orbs. That mechanic is awful for a couple reasons. And I like laughing at people who can't tell their left from their right. That was always funny. I thought the shadow mechanics were cool. Again, a little gimmicky and a little one note. Umbral Orbs just, like, the snapshots were so awful. But worse than that is that Umbral Orbs did a thing that drove me insane, which is that the two people that do it right, if one person fucks up, they get a damage down, and the person who fucked up doesn't. And I think that sucks. I think punishing only the people who do it right and not the person who does it wrong is really stupid. I don't know how you fix that in that mechanic specifically. Maybe just don't give a damage down if it's a two-person soak. You're already having to heal more damage than you should. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty middling fight. Nothing super interesting, but nothing horrible. And honestly, I feel the same way about E11. E11 is, like, aesthetically a very cool fight. It's got some cool mechanics. I think, like, the I forget what they're called, the, like, kind of big downtime, almost pseudo trio mechanics, those are kind of cool. I don't hate those. I like the big mirrors too, those were cool. But overall, what is it? Prismatic Deception. That mechanic is really stupid. Gotta be one of the most nothing mechanics of all time. It felt like they were like, all right, we need this fight to be like 40 seconds longer. What do we do? Like, it's, and then they had like 30 seconds to figure it out, and then they just did that. And overall, just kind of a really repetitive and boring fight. But it was fun during Prague. I liked how you had to, like, react to the mechanics a little bit, but overall, not super great. And then we got Eden's Promise Peak. Like, man, They really just fucking crushed it with final bosses and Shadowbringers, dude. Like, holy fuck, man. Eden's Promise was so good. Really good music, really fun mechanics. The way that she like channels the primals to do different like fillers in between mechanics is really cool. The Shiva and Titan junctions are really cool. This is one of the only door bosses that doesn't feel unfinished. Unlike the Endwalker door bosses, which don't feel like full fights. This feels like a full fight. And honestly, I think I say the same thing about Gaia. I know some people don't like this as much, but man, cool iteration on the spell and waiting mechanic. Great music, great visuals. The pacing is like a little weird. Triple APOC is like a little janky, but overall I really like it. And I also like the soft enrage for that fight a lot, where like she just fucking like, that feels like an enrage, right? It feels like she's like frantically throwing everything at you as like a last ditch attempt to kill you. I think that's really cool, even though it does eventually go into the just super generic long cast bar and rage. It at least has something interesting beforehand. Really great fight, man. Shadowbringers was just peak, man. The raids were just so good. All right, final stretch. Boy, this one's gonna be all over the place. It's funny because our boy Eric Tony here, Eric Tony's Pizza, I don't know a single person who didn't zone into normal mode for this fight the first time and just go, what the fuck is that hitbox? So ridiculous. I can't give him more than a C, man. He's just like, I think he's one of the better C fights. But you want to talk about first fight of the expansion, teaching players and letting players kind of warm up to Savage. Eden Prime does it so much better. This fight has like two interesting mechanics, right? It's got fourfold shackles, fourfold chains, whatever it's called, and Intemperance. Intemperance is only difficult because there's like a weird swap that needs to happen sometimes. It's just, it's not like, it's such a weird way to add difficult fight. And it's just not that interesting. And fourfold shackles is also not that interesting. It happens really slow, so you can kind of just vibe it if you're like a decent team. And then once people figured out the timer strat, like it was over. It was Jover. Then we got our boy Hippocampus. Great fight. Great fucking fight. Started the trend of them kind of taking one fight every tier in Endwalker and trying to fuck around with the arena. And I think they did a really great job with this one. Just a really fun, interesting, unique fight that does a lot of cool stuff. It doesn't go crazy with it because it's only the second fight, but I think it does enough to really be engaging to all players, not just new players, but all players. I think it's a really well-made and fun fight to do week after week. You got to pay attention. It keeps you on your toes. Yeah, it's really good. P3S. This guy is one of the more divisive bosses in the game's history. I really like it. I think mechanically it's got some really cool stuff. I think Firestorms of Asphodelos is really good. Fountain of Fire is really awesome. Seeing the giant shields on everyone as the healers are doing that mechanic is so cool. It's definitely another fight that, like, there's been a few on this list so far where it just like, it feels like they ran out of ideas in the last 25% of the boss's health. The Dead Rebirth or whatever, that mechanic's really cool. The one where you have to intentionally get hit by the birds. That's a really cool mechanic, especially if you have an Astro in your party, because that's like you get to watch your Astro just cast a fucking party-wide benediction. Obviously, the elephant in the room with this fight is the arena, which like is kind of indefensible. I don't know how that made it past any form of playtesting. I don't even really know how it happened in the first place. The game has had orange AoE markers since the dawn of time, to then take those orange AoE markers, give them to an orange boss, put him on a orange platform with an orange background. Like, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. That's just, like, it's indefensible. I have no idea what the fuck they were thinking or how the fuck that made it out of any kind of playtesting, because it's just, it's pretty bad. But I don't think it ruins the fight. Like, yeah, it's ugly, but like, the fight's still fun. I think it's got a cool ads phase too, which is rare. I think a lot of people's opinion of this fight is also just skewed by their experience progging it, especially if they progged either with like a mid-core or casual static, or they progged in Party Finder. I just think this fight tore up people who were maybe newer to raiding. Endwalker obviously had a lot of new players, and I think this was a reality check for a lot of people, and I think they just have bad memories of it because of that. All right. Hesperos? I always mix these two up. This is Hesperos, right? Phase 1. I think it's a B. Cool ideas. I think the role-based mechanics can be kind of cool. Pinax, it's okay. I think they just took a lot of really uninteresting mechanics and put them into a fight with like a slightly higher than average DPS check, and I just don't think it really hit. Like, I think it just felt kind of like it was missing a little something. And again, I think that's just an innate problem with the door boss thing. You can't really commit too much to doing anything crazy because you just don't have that much time to work with. It's a big reason why I don't like door bosses, and I think the fight suffers because of it. I think if they were to take this fight and somehow combine it with the mechanics of the second phase, or expand or make this fight really, really short, like a Stormblood door boss, just make you do like one round of rot tether passes, one round of Pinax, and like some towers or something, and then just boom, fight's over, go into phase 2, I think that would be better. I would remember it more fondly. But because it just doesn't really ever do anything super interesting, but still lasts like 8 minutes, I think it falls flat. I do like phase 2 more. I think phase 2 is really good. It's not like S tier, but I think it thematically is very cool. Yeah, I think it does. I think it's thematically very cool how it does, like, it shows you all of the mechanics happening at once and then kind of tethers to each one to show you the order they're going to happen in. I think it's a very cool idea. I think the way it splits up the segments of the fight into like the Act 1, Act 2 is cool and gives you like these very concrete like feelings of progression throughout the fight, where like once you're done with Act 1 you are solidly on Act 2, and once you're done with Act 2 you are solidly on Act 3. Act 2 I think is really the only like very difficult mechanic of the fight, and then the final curtain call, I think it's called, the like soft and rage-ish mechanic is really awesome. Just so much fucking raid damage going out really pushes your healers, which is rare, and I think just a really great way to end the fight. But if we want to talk peak, our boy right here, Proto Carby, fantastic first fight. Really, really good first fight. P5 is really, really fun. Devour, another one of those mechanics that's just hilarious to watch people eat shit to, because like it's a really simple mechanic. It is literally just dodge forehead. Dodge. Just dodge the AoEs, bro. I feel like people overcomplicated the shit out of that mechanic. Maybe that's a ping privilege thing, but I don't know. I feel like I cannot believe that Devour destroyed people the way it did. But as strong of a start as it was to the tier, we then go to what's her name? I can't even remember. Hegemony. This just, I think, scrapes by No, I think this gotta go in the stinky tier. This fight sucks. This fight sucks. It feels like they came up with like 3 mechanics and then went, all right, let's make a 9-minute fight. It's just so one note and so boring. It's just the same fucking thing over and over again. It does nothing interesting with the ideas, which are cool ideas. Like, I think the Exchange of Agonies mechanics could be really cool. Maybe hindered by the fact that it was the second fight and they didn't want to go too crazy with it, but it becomes just this incredible snooze fest. Really, really not good fight. Really not good. And then this is the worst Savage boss fight they've ever made. Not even close. P7 is the worst fight they've ever made. There is not a single, well, there is a single redeeming quality about the fight. It just happens 8 to 9 minutes into the fight. So you're asleep for like the entire fucking fight. You're asleep for like 90% of the fight. And then once you're Biss, you just kill her before anything interesting actually happens. And during Prague, it's just like struggling to stay awake through the most boring mechanics of all time to get to like the 3 famine mechanics, which are like kind of interesting. They're not crazy interesting, but they're at least like activating a single neuron in your brain. Yeah, it's a horrible fight. Not to mention there is one mechanic that could have made it kind of interesting, which was purgation, and then there was the Sleepo Cat strat that just completely made it a non-mechanic. It's just so funny because, like, how did they not realize that you had room to do everything on the same platform? How did they not realize that? I don't understand. I don't know, man. But nothing I dreaded more than reclearing this fight every week, and one of the most unfun Prague experiences I've ever had. Just an absolutely horrible fucking fight. Hephaestus Phase 1. Banger fight. Actually, it is a banger fight, but I don't know if I can in good conscience give it an S because of the dog first memes. I don't necessarily have a huge issue with diverging timelines, but when one of them is so much more annoying to execute than the other, on top of an absolutely brutal DPS check, it's really hard for me to give it an S. And if it was like a Titan level amazing fight, I would say I would look past it, because Titan also had the short and fast instance memes, but I look past that because the fight was amazing and the DPS check wasn't overbearing. But for this, at least for week 1, obviously, you know, once they fix the DPS check, it's whatever, but damage is done at that point. I give it a solid top of the A. Phase 2, I give it top of the B. I think high concept was very cool. I think natural alignment was also very cool, but that's like 50% of the fight. I think like Limitless Desolation was such a nothing mechanic. I don't know, it just felt a little, it felt like it was missing something. And I also, I don't really feel like high concept needed to be a downtime mechanic, but I feel like maybe Melee's just got so babied in this expansion that because Melee's would have to disengage from the boss for a fucking GCD or 2 during high concept if they got one of the ones that needed to go far, that they made it a downtime mechanic. But overall, I don't think it was bad. I think it was okay. Man, Abyssos sure was one of the tiers of all time, huh? All right, I'm gonna be honest. I think somehow this is a hot take, and I don't really know how. Cocky toes. I think this fight is like mid as hell. This is like low C tier. Like, it does not go into the stinky tier because it's not horrendously offensive, but it's so fucking boring, dude. It's so boring. You do like nothing in this fight. Like, look at this fight compared to like P5. Holy shit, man. It's just such a nothing fight. And I see people say, like, I've seen people say it's the best first fight they've ever made. They fucking love this fight. And I don't get it. It's so boring. The first 2 minutes of this fight, you do absolutely fucking nothing but go into some protean spots and do an in and out. I remember when I progged this fight and we got to the first 2 minute window and I was like, holy shit, has it really already been 2 minutes in this fight? We have done absolutely nothing. And then, yeah, you get Levin Strike, which is like, it's fine. It's kind of interesting. And then Levin Strike is over and it's just like, okay, I don't know. I feel like this fight was so boring. I do not get the hype for Kakutos. I think it's a really, really mediocre fight and one of the lamer first bosses they've ever made. This guy is the analog, the equivalent of Cloud of Darkness. And man, Cloud of Darkness had hands. This guy's got toes. I don't get the hype over this guy. P10. Banger fight. Definitely my favorite non-final boss they've ever made. I don't know why they felt the need to just be like, hey man, this fight's got fucking hands. But they did, and they did not make a mistake. God, that fight's just so fun. Really fun fight to re-clear. Pacing is great. Mechanics are fun. Does more cool shit with the arena. Just a stellar fucking fight. I don't have a bad thing to say about the fight other than, again, maybe another fight that feels like it runs out of ideas towards the end, but I think that's also just because, like, they ran into situations in Shadowbringers in fights like E10 and E11 where they put the really big mechanics at the very end, and then when you were Abyss, you just skipped them. So I think they put the stuff that wasn't as detrimental to skip in terms of your experience doing the fight towards the end, which I think is fine. P11, I mean, it's E11 at home. I like it a little bit more than E11 because I think that its big mechanic of light and dark is more interesting than like the Sundered Sky and like Prismatic Deception. Letter of the Law is definitely, it's there. I don't think it is very interesting, but it's there. Yeah, I liked it, but it didn't blow my mind. Athena Phase 1 is S tier. Every mechanic in this fight is really fun. Like, the super chains are fun. Para mechanics are fun. Great pacing. Just a really, really fucking solid fight. It does have the same problem every door boss has, where it just feels like it's kind of over by the time you're like really engaged. But I think whoever made it did as much as they could with what they had. Phase 2, I would give it probably an A. I think it's probably on par with like P4's Phase 2. It's not amazing, but it's got some cool stuff. The UAV mechanic is fucking hilarious. Classical Concepts is a cool mechanic. Yeah, I overall just really enjoy both phases of P12, but I think the first phase is definitely the stronger of the two. And that's it. That is the tier list.